Jonathan, hi.
Ian Heller, how are you?
I'm great. I'm so excited to do this with you. This is the 2023 What Customers Want, a great customer experience, online and offline, put together by my illustrious and amazing business partner, Jonathan Bine, PhD, with me as the color commentator. We've got a great message today for distributors, Jonathan, and one they need to hear. But before we do that, why don't we do a little business so we can pay the bills? You want to jump ahead for me? So I want to tell you about an amazing product developed by Jonathan, and it is called Customer Experience RX. It's from Distribution Strategy Group, and it is an NPS system or Net Promoter Score system designed specifically for distributors. And as Jonathan says, an NPS score, a lot of times it's just like a temperature, right? Your temperature is 102, but you don't know why, right? This is the diagnostic underneath that tells you why you have that temperature. There's a dashboard that you can use. It has all kinds of different pull downs, so you can sort by customer segment and customer location, by business unit, and you get importance and performance ratings. So you know not only how you're performing, but where you need to perform better and where it's really going to matter to drive a better NPS score. So whether that's sales rep performance, product availability, customer service on the phone, your website, delivery, pricing, you're going to know exactly why you have the score that you have and exactly what you need to do to improve it. There's never been a system like this for distributors, and I'm so delighted to be associated with the genius who invented it, and that's Jonathan. So, Jonathan, thanks for bringing this to the market. It's been very well received. We have literally dozens of distributors on that platform, and we hope you'll take a look at it if you need NPS. But now I'd like to bring in Sandy Leon from Epicor to tell us a little bit about Epicor, which is one of the mainstays, one of the primary ERPs that distributors use. Take it away, Sandy.
Sounds good. Thanks so much, Ian. We're happy to be a sponsor today, especially about this topic, which is near and dear to our heart. Epicor is here for the hardworking businesses that make, move, and sell. And when it comes to the move, your industry, we've been in the distribution industry for over 50 years. We know your world, we understand your challenges, and we can help you solve them. In fact, when we ask new customers why they chose Epicor in the first place, the thing we hear most often is that we get them and our software is the best fit for what they do right out of the box. The other thing that we're really proud of is that our customer retention rate is an unheard of 95%. That's not by chance. We work hard to make that happen. Next slide. So today, I'm excited to see the results of this research. In our 50 years of serving distributors, we've certainly seen customer buying trends evolve. Our ERP solutions were designed to help you meet your buyers where they are by making it easy to find you online, to deliver more than your customers expect, to get personal with them, and to be able to wow them after the sale is done. If you're looking for new technology, we'd love to talk. As one customer satisfaction manager told us, Epicor Profit 21 has allowed us to be more efficient and effective, but also to reach our customers in a way we never thought of. With that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Helen Pena from Whitecup.
Hi, everyone. I'm pretty excited to be here as well on this webinar that focuses on online and offline customer experience. So for those who don't know Whitecup, we've been helping distributors for over 25 years and have over 800 customers. Our integrated CRM, BI, and pricing solutions are built for distributors and integrated with your ERP and also your e-commerce platform. Our perspective is that distributors will win with a data-driven CRM because it'll transform their selling for more revenue and better profits. Now imagine your offline sales reps being totally in the loop with your customers' online activity and then being able to take action on that insight. It's time for the online and offline worlds to collide, we think. Next slide. Our customers have a lot to say about our tech, but they especially appreciate how it helps them take action on critical insight for their success. Next slide, Neil. And that's because our technology helps turn a distributor's data into dollars, whether it's data from your ERP or from your e-commerce platform. So your entire customer-facing team has data insights and trends on your customers and product at their fingertips, and the tools they need to take action on the insights. So give your customer-facing team the CRM to make faster and better decisions and automate their work as much as possible. Your reps will love it, and you'll love the revenue and profits from it. Next slide, yeah. So we'd love to stay in touch. Reach out anytime. Here's my contact info and also our website. Thanks again.
Hey, Helen, I facilitated a panel at one of your user conferences, as you know, and the fanatical devotion to your products was impressive. I was expecting people to start showing off their white cup tattoos.
Yep, we love those.
Great. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dr. Bine, take it away, my friend.
Thank you, Ian. I think a really important idea about customer experience, which in some ways is a nebulous term, is that it is the totality of the experience the customer has with you, from online to offline, from branch to rep to delivery. All the places that you touch them is what forms the customer experience. Since you sell pretty much the same products as your competitor, you're not going to differentiate who you are based on what you sell. Maybe you've got an exclusive for some products for some territories, but basically selling the same things. So the bottom line is that in distribution, the customer experience, that totality, that is your product. And that's how you're going to differentiate. And if you do this well, you make happy customers, and happy customers are loyal, and loyal customers buy more. And we all know what happens when customers buy more. It's good for our business. So this is a really key idea that I think people need to take very seriously here. We're going to talk about a couple things, all based on research from thousands of end customers. First, how do customers like to shop and buy? We'll talk about what that means. Second is what are they wanting from you? The title of this talk is What Customers Want. So we want to understand those requirements. Again, we're going to bring data from thousands of respondents across multiple customer bases, multiple sectors to inform that answer. Equally important, how satisfied are they? What is it that they like about what you're doing? And then there's a third angle, which has a bit of a quantitative, well, not a bit. It's got a strong quantitative flavor, which is what's really driving customer satisfaction. So we'll talk about all three of those things as it pertains to the customer experience and how they shop and buy. If you've listened to us ramble about anything over the last few years, you know that we make this very important distinction between shopping and buying. Shopping is researching, evaluating, assessing the purchase of a product. Buying is in some form doing a transaction, ordering, purchasing. In the consumer world, if you go to Amazon, you are shopping and buying in the same venue, unless you shop on Amazon and then go into Best Buy to actually make your purchase, right? Then you've actually separated the shopping and the buying experience. One is digital, the shopping. The other is physical or offline, which is the buying. So what we've studied over the years, and literally we had like 20,000 respondents over the years, is what shopping and buying looks like in distribution. The areas that we look at are really the first three, actually the big three are all digital, including shopping by a search engine, shopping by going to a distributor or manufacturer website. We've just recently added into our research over here at the end marketplaces, and we don't really have a prior comp on that because they're in some ways new enough. What we're showing here is data that is post 2020 versus pre 2020. So the red is the pre 2020 data. A couple of things really jump out, and clearly this data has big overlap and influence from what happened during COVID. First is that the search engine, we've seen huge increase in people searching before then going to probably a distributor manufacturer website, potentially even a marketplace. The other thing that we've seen is that going to either the distributor or manufacturer website has seen a huge jump. And then finally, marketplaces came out of nowhere and have really taken a lot of eyeballs for how shopping gets done. The totality of this is that the digital methods of shopping are becoming much more prevalent. And I think if we look at what's happened in the the e-commerce world, product data has gotten better. Revenues that are going through the shopping cart are coming up for many companies. A lot of hurdles were crossed going into 2020 and then pushed forward several years by COVID.
Hey, Jonathan, the blue is post 2020, right?
I'm sorry?
The blue is post 2020?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If anybody else has a question, please jump in. But yeah, so you've seen this huge jump in digital, and marketplaces came out of nowhere to suddenly tie for fifth or sixth, I guess.
Yeah, and and that trajectory, if we do this again in 2 years from now, which is about the cadence we do this, we would expect marketplaces to have come way up to maybe fourth overall. So,
and someone's asking what is meant by a marketplace. I think we mean Amazon Business, Zoro, and similar sort of third-party assortments that are combined together in a single platform, right?
Yeah, it's multiple sellers, one website, as opposed to your e-commerce site. If you're a distributor, you are one seller. The marketplaces are multiple sellers. So,
and then what is different between a distributor website and a marketplace? Well, that's like what's the difference between Target and Amazon, right? So Target just sells Target stuff, although they used to just sell Target stuff. That's typically what you think of when you go to Target.com. Amazon sells from third-party sellers from around the world, millions of them. So Nancy, who asked the question, distributors sell one company selling its own products on its website. A marketplace is many, many distributors, or in B2B, selling on a single website like Zoro or Amazon Business.
And last count, what is the number of sellers on Amazon Business? Is it north of 2 million at this point, probably?
Yeah, there's a big difference between like total number and active number, but it's in the millions.
Wow.
And Amazon Business, last year, they announced that they'd done $35 billion in sales. All B2B.
Okay. So that's kind of the story on buying. I mean, on shopping. Now let's look at buying in aggregate. The one thing that we saw when we started measuring this was that ordering by email is really dominant. And it has been dominant over the 8 or 9 years we've been doing this research. It jumped, it was already at 38%, very frequently or frequently ordered by email. It jumped to 45% post 2020. Website or mobile, looked huge jump. That's a massive jump post 2020. And then you see that the way that people interact with people has changed, right? There's less emphasis on supplier rep by phone, less emphasis on supplier rep in person. So the branch is still a busy place, but there is this shift towards digital buying. Again, this is aggregate data. It is going to depend significantly on the industry segment. It's going to depend significantly on your customer base. The marketplace usage for buying has soared as well. And we know a number of distributors who are experimenting with different aspects of different marketplaces. So we expect voice ordering to make a bigger leap in the next couple of years. All of the stuff that's been happening with AI, the quality of voice ordering, we think that will make a leap over the next couple of years. We also wanted to see what's happening by the breakdown of different mechanisms. So if we group e-commerce, marketplace, search, manufacturer website, if we group that into digital, we group the branch over the phone, rep coming to your place as people, and then the other things as print. We see this big shift towards digital shopping methods. And interestingly, the younger folks, well, I guess not surprisingly, the younger folks tend to use digital more than the other age groups. Who would have guessed that, right?
Yeah, to me though, the digital's number one by a lot in all of these categories. And
yes,
so it's interesting to me that there's not as much difference here as what I would have thought.
Yeah, this should be very different if we ran this 10 years ago.
Yeah,
we would see a marked emphasis on people for older or perhaps print. People still have the dog-eared catalogs on their shelves, with bookmarks, etc. So we've reached a new point where people with our hair color and quantity are less and less in the market, and our kids are coming up, right?
Yeah, thanks for that shot.
Hey man, it was back at me too.
I know, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. We wanted to contrast manufacturing versus construction, and this is a very interesting contrast, just in terms of buying, because this really illustrates the point that it does vary by segment and by customer base within the segment. So you can see that customers in manufacturing have a much stronger digital focus than customers in construction, at least when it comes to buying. Shopping is a different story. Customers in construction are much more likely to buy from a person than folks in manufacturing. So there are these differences in the manufacturing world. You've got professional procurement in most cases. Certainly as you get to any nominal size of business, that means you're going to be seeing stuff coming through email. It means you're going to be seeing punch out, EDI. They may be less apt to use your website, by the way. I mean, if you look at this, the manufacturing website difference is not as great relative to construction as email or marketplaces or punch out or EDI. There's no comparison. So another way of saying this is, if that's how your customers buy, if you're selling to industrial, you're going to have a hard time getting them to put their order in your email, in your e-commerce shopping cart. It's not how they do business. And it's not about quality of your website or anything. It's just about how they purchase. If we look at digital versus people in different sectors, we see that the customers in manufacturing and wholesale trade are much more likely to buy digital versus from people. If we look at the customers in construction and services, they're more likely to buy from a person than digitally. So just another view on that. Now let's look at when we tie together the shopping and the buying. What happens when I start a certain point in my shopping journey? Where am I likely to go in my buying, in this next stage of my buying journey? So this slide is showing the order placement after I've shopped on a distributor website. And this is saying, hey, after I've been to a website, the two most likely things are email and then actually doing the order on the website. I could do customer service rep by phone. I could go into the branch or store as well. So, I guess the really important thing is that when you have somebody shopping on your site, you want to make sure that the order comes to you. If they're shopping on a marketplace, unless you're on that marketplace, you're not going to be getting that ordered. So now, if we look at it after they've shopped with a rep, we see that there's a bigger tendency to do customer rep by phone, a shopping in person or buying in person, either customer service rep by phone, branch or store, sales rep in person, sales rep by phone. We see those play a much bigger role in that world. This is the way a lot of the stuff goes, really, I would say, in the construction world as opposed to the industrial world. You're going to see that purchasing more through people than through digital. I'm going to mention this now, and then I'm going to say it again through the presentation, which is individual mileage on all of this stuff is going to vary. I'm showing you data from thousands of respondents, multiple customer bases, multiple segments. Every customer base is a snowflake, which means it's unique, right? That's the nature of a snowflake. We've looked at customer bases that should be more or less similar, and we're shocked at the differences in what customers want from one customer base versus the other one. Did we have a question, Ian?
Sorry, I was muted. I've never been on a webcast before.
Yeah.
No, we had a couple questions. I just clarified them. So
Okay, very good.
we don't need to go into them.
Okay, good. Here's some more color on that journey phenomenon. So if I start with a distributor rep, here's what the breakdown looks like in terms of how I buy, the percentages. If I start with a distributor website, here's what it looks like in terms of the breakdown here. So this is shop with people, buy with digital. This is shop with digital, buy with digital. And we did ask people to tell us about the buying methods they used, if we understood what they were doing for shopping. More color on that, there are differences between the different sectors. Manufacturing is really big on email. It's coming out of their email. It's coming out of their procurement or purchasing system. Retail trade is very low on doing this because a lot of them are smaller businesses. They don't necessarily have those professional procurement systems. If I shop by talking to a rep, construction is most apt to do stuff by phone. So this stuff is easy to instrument. We've got a couple different survey questions that get at what's going on in your customer base. And here we're really looking at what people do as opposed to what their preference is. We infer their preference based on what they do, but it is more about what they do.
I think, Jonathan, this gets back to the original reason that you a decade ago began really pushing on the difference between shopping and buying, because people, even when they shop on a digital channel, most of the time they're not buying on a digital channel. And so these websites get way under attributed for sales because, business buyers aren't like consumers. They have to comply with the purchasing process. They have a purchasing system. And so if their system is, hey, I'm going to put together a $5,000 order on your website, but then I'm going to put it in a PO and have my boss approve it and then email it to you. In most cases, the distributor gets zero attribution for that. The website gets zero attribution for that, even though the website was an important part of generating the sale. And so the shopping and the buying are very different activities. And to your point, that's very unlike the consumer world, where, almost always whatever channel you shop in, you buy in, so you don't have to try to measure the difference.
Another way to think about just what you said is you may find that 75% of your customers are shopping with you digitally, yet only 10% is going through the e-commerce shopping cart. Yeah. So what happened to the rest of that, right? And that's really speaks to that attribution problem that you're talking about.
Right.
So when we think about what customers want, we're really talking about the market requirements for a customer base or for a segment within a customer base. And the elements of customer experience and distribution that we've seen really boil down to 10 that are common across distributors, whether you're in food, industrial, construction. These 10, inventory availability, customer service, really by phone, by the way, that's how we ask that question. Price, and we'll talk a fair bit about price. It's unusual as an element. The reps, the product assortment you have, expertise, both pre and post sale. So that can be a technical support, pre and post sale, delivery, and then what happens in branch, whether it's at the counter or at the will call, how easy it is to use your website, and then the proximity to branch. So those are the 10 really common ones across most distributors. In your particular case, you may not have counter service or will call. It may not be a branch-based experience. It may all be focused on delivery. Or your delivery may all be through common carrier, in which case you don't really have much control over what happens in that experience. It's up to UPS or FedEx to do the delivery. And if the driver's nice, it's credited to UPS or FedEx. If the driver's rude, it's credited to UPS or FedEx. There's a whole other set of things around the value-added services that are very particular to your business, perhaps to the segment you're in. So if you're in industrial, there's maybe certain kinds of value-added services you do, or if you're in fasteners, or if you're in HVAC, you might be doing various kitting, assembly, even panel building. We're not going to be looking at those. We don't have cross-industry data on value-added services because there's just so many of them. I think, Ian, just in one sector, you identified like 100 or 150 value-added services.
Yeah, I think we've documented like 350 or something total.
350, yeah, it's a big number.
That's not exhaustive. That's not exhaustive.
And that's right. It's to your point. I mean, it's not even close to exhaustive. So,
right.
So these are really significant, and it might be the case that only a small portion of your customer base is using the value-added services, but often it's a high value portion of your customer base, and for that high value portion of your customer base, those value-added services are crucial and very sticky in staying with you. So we're going to be talking about the 10, both on what customers want, what they like about what you're doing, and then also ultimately what's going to be driving the overall customer satisfaction. Just as background, I'm showing a slice of the question we asked to get information about importance. So we ask it as a 5-point scale from very important to unimportant, and that gets translated into a number, and we ask that for the different capabilities or drivers. And when we get to the satisfaction, we'll show how we ask that question as well. So here's a bit of a big reveal. The three most important capabilities, again, this is across thousands and thousands of respondents, are inventory availability, customer service, and then competitive price. And one thing that's important to take away from this is that not everything is equally important to your customer base, and not everything is very important to your customer base. Sometimes people think, well, they just want it all. And survey after survey we've seen, there are clear preferences by customer base for what they're expecting from you. Technically, this is a 0 to 10 band. In practice, we tend to see importance scores somewhere between 7 and 9.5. So let's dig into these high importance, medium importance, and low importance, at least at the aggregate level. Let's dig into those, and we're going to see some nuance between segments and customer bases. Over and over, we see that availability is the most important attribute, and it's particularly true during COVID. I think it's the numbers that we've seen have gone up even higher because of the supply chain issues. When we look at it based on if we look at it based on the ranked importance, about 3/4 of the time people say availability is first or second. And I think 65% they're saying it's the most important thing. The one thing that we see, which leads us to conclude that it should be table stakes, is that there's almost no variance in the importance of availability, whether across the industry, across large, medium, and small customers. And looking at the 25 customers we have, we just didn't see much variation in this across customer base. It's just super important to everybody. So that tends to make us think it's table stakes, even though it's been difficult to deliver on during COVID.
And you know what I find a little bit scary about this, Jonathan, is I think the big players in retail know this, that online, being able to find something online is almost commoditized, right? You can find so many things at multiple websites, right? It's just, and so what are they doing? They know differentiation in the end is about getting things to customers quickly. So you've got Home Depot, Walmart and Amazon surrounding metropolitan areas with huge distribution centers, millions and millions and millions of square feet, putting product in it so they can out deliver their competitors. So distributors need to realize that the game for how fast you can fulfill is getting tougher all the time. And so you have to be able to afford a good assortment and good on-hand assortment.
Well, yeah, and that phenomena of consumers hoarding and then channel hoarding during COVID has now led to a significant amount of E&O inventory for a lot of distributors, right?
We have a question here. Jonathan, Paul wants to know, do you have a view on same day or next day availability importance?
It's really a great question. It is definitely increasing, and no surprise, what we've been trained for by Amazon. I order my medical supplements on Sunday at noon. I get them at 3. That's spilling over to what we're expecting in the B2B world. So, but I think the other thing is that it's not everything that a customer orders the same day or next day. If you ask them how many of your last 10 orders needed to be same day, next day, 2 days, 3 to 7, more than 7, you won't find that everybody says everything needs to be yesterday or today. So it is always a distribution of a response in terms of what their requirement is.
Right. Right. Yeah, I think we should do some research on that. I think it's a good prompt for us to understand what the expectation is, maybe in the future, maybe 2024. Because I do think the next day, same day is becoming a bigger expectation. It's almost like an entitlement now.
There's no question. Yeah.
And, did you mean, is that excess and obsolete in your definition?
I'm sorry?
What did you mean by E&O?
Yeah, excess and obsolete. Yes.
Excess and obsolete. Good.
Yeah. So, yeah, I just think the hoarding effect, now that the supply chains are starting to normalize, has led to probably more excess and obsolete. In terms of the customer service, it's super, super high importance, and it also varies significantly by customer base. So retail needs it a lot more than manufacturing. That was just something that we noticed in the data. And I think with manufacturing, you're probably buying a smaller set of SKUs, whether it's MRO or OEM, it has more of a repeat purchase flavor as opposed to construction or institutional or services. Services was more like construction. They're going to need, they're going to need more help with customer service than manufacturing. So
manufacturing does a lot of standardized ordering. They never even talk to anybody, right? I mean, if you're just ordering by email and EDI,
right,
then customer service isn't really someone that you interact with.
Exactly. Yep. Now the third one that's really interesting is price. We hear this. People are surprised that price is third. And when I look across the hundreds of surveys we've done, Ian, I've once seen price be the most important thing. Once. We normally see it at third, maybe 15 to 20% of the time it's second most important. But this is surprising to distributors because they're on the front lines. Their sales reps are telling us we're getting beat up all day long. In fact, we saw this when we did a customer survey for one distributor and an employee survey for that same distributor. Employees said, "Oh, we're getting beaten up all day long." Customers were like, "Yeah, you're good enough on price. We didn't." So the gaming that the customers were doing to the reps made the reps think that their prices were not good, but in reality, they were graded, fairly on price. It's often more important to smaller customers than it is to large customers, and there's overlap with smaller customers and construction. This comment here, it's super important for construction, and that doesn't matter whether it's project or service installation. There's more price sensitivity there. So manufacturing and distribution were less sensitive to price. When distribution is buying, it's often, hey, you know, we can't get it from our supplier. We're going to get it from our competitor. We'll return the favor to the competitor at some other point in time. And so price is less, they're less sensitive in that situation. I would say, you know, generally, except for we're going to talk more about reps and website, the construction customers have higher standards for importance of pretty much everything. They were, you know, they had a bigger expectation around importances. Services was somewhat similar. Okay, now if we go to the medium importance topics, the four that came out were sales reps, and these are obviously going to be more important to large customers. For some customer bases, the value of a good sales rep is paramount. I would say particularly when the transaction or when there's more transaction or product complexity. If you're selling more something that looks like a commodity, a simpler transaction, the sales rep is not going to be paramount. We saw very little variance across industry and customer bases, so there's general agreement on the importance of sales reps. For product assortment, this is an interesting one. So many distributors tout their product assortment in large font on their website. In fact, it's hard to differentiate on this, and it turns out, somewhat surprisingly, to be of medium importance, not high importance.
You think that's just because it's table stakes? I mean, if you
Yeah,
don't have it, you're out of the game.
this is what distributors do, right?
Yeah.
Is what we do. Yeah. Construction needed a bigger assortment. Manufacturing was less sensitive to assortment. And once again, there wasn't a ton of variance across customer size and industry. The next one is technical expertise. And what we saw in general was that this was more important to small customers, which is going to overlap with services and construction than it was to large customers. Retail was less sensitive to technical expertise. Again, the real fulcrum here, the real deciding point is the complexity of the products. If you're selling commodities, the technical expertise is going to matter a lot less. Delivery was another one in this medium importance spectrum, and interestingly, it also is pretty much table stakes. It was only first or second in about an eighth of the customer bases. There was pretty high variance, which means that in some cases you've got customer bases that are focused on branch, others that are branch will call, counter service. In other cases, you got businesses that are focused on delivery. For the construction project world, not the service and installation world, delivery is much more important. For retail and distribution, they didn't rank it as important.
Hey, Jonathan. So I've been messaging with Ted in the background, who's on the call. And he is saying, you know, Amazon originally set the standard for 2-day delivery, and that became expected of distributors. Now that standard may no longer be fulfilled by Amazon, he means. Because like Ted, I'm getting these a growing number of your delivery is delayed messages from Amazon, many more than I used to.
Yeah.
So, you know, his point is Amazon's doesn't really seem to be living up to it as well as they used to, but it still kind of is the standard for distributors because of how they used to perform. So it'll be interesting to see if Amazon recovers and starts delivering on time again and as rapidly and reliably as they have, or if that expectation will diminish for distributors if Amazon can't get back to their historical level of performance. But I don't know how people in the call feel, but I do see that Amazon doesn't deliver as reliably as it used to.
Absolutely. I think that's a really interesting possible correlation, that our expectations are driven even now negatively by Amazon, not just positively, right? As Amazon falls off, perhaps our expectations fall off. Interesting idea. Branch experience, again, this is one where there's a really, really big range of the importance. For some customers, it matters not at all. So it really boiled down to a binary. It's essential to some, not at all to others. And in some cases, when we do these surveys, our distributor customer doesn't even want to ask about branch because it's that unimportant or that irrelevant to the business. So generally, the branch experience is more important to small, which once again corresponds or correlates to the services construction sector. Now, given that we just went through this whole piece on website, I think, Ian, you were talking about commoditization of web or easy to use website. And I think that's really where we are now. When we started doing the web research 10 years ago, I think for about four different distributors, we asked their customers whether web was a determining factor in doing business with that distributor. And there was a much lower rate of companies that could do e-commerce back then, and it seemed to loom much larger. It's not a differentiator at this point, by and large. That's not to say every distributor has got e-commerce, but enough do that it's lower importance. People are expecting a good shopping experience, even if they're not going to buy online. So that means there has to be good product data. They have to be able to find their orders. They have to be able to see inventory status, something available, that sort of a thing. But it's lower importance. And then finally, proximity was an interesting one. It's shown as lower importance, yet when we've done financial analysis, we often see that there is a range beyond which the revenue per customer drops way off. So you get to 20 minutes away from a branch and the revenue just like drops off the table. So it's a curious cognitive dissonance between what they're telling us in importance, but what they're actually doing with their purchasing. So
we have a couple of one comment and one question. Amit says, I live in a large metro area and I've noticed a significant improvement in Amazon's delivery performance. Oftentimes 2-day Prime becomes next day Prime. So I think, there's a diversity of experiences out there. And so thank you, Amit, for that. And then Mike wants to know, how do you see marketplaces providing any additional services like delivery, rep support, and expertise? And we've written on this extensively, and Mike, I can send you some articles that we've done, but marketplaces don't want to put people into the service delivery process. They want to scale without variable costs by just charging a commission, having other people do the work, right? So they advertise it, the third party carries the inventory, pays the working capital costs, does the picking and packing and shipping, and the marketplace just gets a commission. If the marketplace starts putting sales reps and expertise in place, they're going to screw up the variable cost model. Amazon is big enough that they can actually create a separate third-party fulfillment fleet because it's cheaper for them than using UPS, but it's totally standardized fulfillment. It's just a replacement for an existing cost. They do not want to put variable costs in their model, generally speaking. So we can talk about that. Give me a call if you want. We can talk about it. Let's see here. Steven says, how has the transparency of order status updates from retail impacted expectations from distributors?
We're going to touch on this. This is a really, really great point. So stay tuned.
We'll get to it, Steven.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so the next topic is really about satisfaction of capabilities or drivers. This is separate from overall satisfaction, really looking at the capabilities or drivers. And I'll just jump ahead here. So the way we asked the question was, for the different drivers, was compared to competitors, worse than, about the same, better than, the best. So what we found was reps, service, customer service, and technical expertise got super high marks across the board. The medium satisfaction things were assortment, delivery, availability, and the in-branch experience. And then the things that got lower satisfaction were proximity, website, and competitive price. And we'll talk about each of these in turn. So if we look at the reps, there was really high of variance across customer sizes. So if we looked at large customers were happier than medium, they were happier than small. There was also huge variance across the customer base. And I think what we've seen with reps is the value add. What this is really showing in a certain way, sorry for interrupting myself here, is a lot of this is about relationships, right? We talked about people in the shopping and buying versus digital versus print. This is showing that, yeah, the distributors, the executives who said, a lot of this is about relationships, meaning it's about people. That's what this is showing. Reps, customer service, and expertise is about people, right? And what really good reps do well in servicing their customers are things like they're bringing expertise to the table. They're helping people figure out what they want. They're being an advocate in getting it in the time frame that they want. But they're also doing things like going above and beyond. I rode with a rep that had a $12 million sales territory. That's a good rep. I think that rep is doing well. And what I saw was when the supplier didn't have a product that the customer wanted, or the product, the rep was able to say, yeah, I know the other products from this brand. I also know products from beyond this brand. There's real value add from the rep, and similarly with customer service. The things for customer service that are driving the high marks are product expertise, product application expertise, super fast quote turnaround, fast order to ship. We're working with one distributor who got very focused on fast quote turnaround. They wanted to take it from a day to like 3 hours. And turns out there's actually an elasticity of fast quote turnaround and business that you get. If you can get quote turnaround to 3 hours, you're going to get more business. There's some sectors where that super fast quote turnaround makes a huge difference. It was a small range, again, indicating that people are aligned around this. The services folks were very big on this, particularly for the service and construction were particularly big around this for jobs that they had to do. But we did see a big variance across individual customer bases. So the satisfaction did vary along customer bases. That suggests this is really an area where you can differentiate, right? If you can provide a higher touch customer service along some of these dimensions, that's going to make things sticky. A third piece that's going to make things sticky is expertise. It's related to the customer service. It could be pre-sales or post-sales. The services sector was more satisfied with expertise than construction was. And this can play a huge role in both the pre-sale and post-sale. So important opportunities for differentiation. In the medium satisfaction area, we had product assortment, availability, delivery, and branch experience. And we saw that for product assortment, this varied the most by customer base. It was a huge range. Services is happier, construction is less happy with it. For availability, going back to the question we spoke about, one of the things that we saw was during COVID is just these crazy supply chain issues. Some of those still remain today. And what we saw in multiple customer bases is, to the extent that they can, customers will work with you if you communicate with them about availability. And what that has led us to in counsel to customers is, can you get better at automated notifications? So if we think about e-commerce 10 years ago to today for distribution and Amazon, notification 10 years ago versus today for distribution and Amazon, distribution's closed the gap on e-commerce a lot, right? I'm not saying that most distributors like Amazon, but the gap is much smaller. That gap on that notification that our audience member was asking about has not changed at all. Amazon is still the gold standard, and very few distributors are able to, in an automated way, let you know. So customers can't do that for you always. They can't work with you. Sometimes, if I'm a plumber and there's stuff on the floor, I need something like right now. But to the extent that they can, they will work with you if you communicate with them. So I think people will find, if they can create that automated capability, it's a huge difference in the customer experience, even post-COVID. Branch experience, also emphasis on fast, accurate, and complete. If you think about, for somebody who's going into a branch to pick something up at will call, if you can really make sure they're not waiting 15 minutes and they're not doing that 3 or 4 days a week. So I order online, I go in the morning to pick up something by will call. That's going to significantly improve that branch experience. And it's a multiplier based on the frequency with which some of those people are doing that. Final areas with this were lower satisfaction, the construction, were proximity, website, and price. We like to think of price really as a denominator. So if we look at the other 9 elements of the distribution customer experience, that's the value, that's the numerator, if you will. Price is the denominator. And we've seen that surveys are a great forum for people to complain about price. So we usually take that with more than a few grains of salt. We do take notice when people complain less or more than usual. That's worth noticing. Another comment we have about price is that, would you want your customers to be happy with price? If the satisfaction scale, we wouldn't want price to be over on the right end. You're probably leaving money on the table. We've talked a lot about the website. Again, it's just becoming a must-have, and it's increasingly commoditized with deployment. There are better and better practices. Even if people aren't buying stuff through your shopping cart, this is an essential element of your customer experience. It just has to be there at a requisite level of functionality and product information, even if they're not putting the orders through the shopping cart. So I want to get to the drivers, and then I think we can wrap here. So we've talked about importance, we've talked about satisfaction. The real question, though, is what's going to drive that overall customer satisfaction? And what we're showing here is importance on that vertical axis, satisfaction on the horizontal axis. And then the bubble size and color is telling us what has the most effect, or to use a statistical term, correlation on overall satisfaction. So in our data, in this set of thousands of respondents, the big 4 are inventory availability, technical expertise, customer service, and professional sales reps. 1 of these is logistic. 3 of these are about relationship and people. The next tier of things that have less impact or less effect on overall satisfaction are assortment, delivery, and branch experience. And then the bottom 3 are, interestingly, price, website, and proximity. What this says is you're not going to radically improve, most of you are not going to radically improve your overall customer satisfaction by creating a better website or by opening more branches. So now, an important caveat, which is to close out the discussion here today. What's important today is how to think about customer experience for shopping and buying, which is the online as well as the offline, as well as these elements of customer experience, the 10 plus the value-added services. I've shown you results, but as Ian said when we were prepping for this, the process of understanding importance, market requirements, understanding what makes them happy, satisfaction, and then also understanding what are the drivers. That's really what needs to happen with your customer base, which is unique. And so once you have that information, then you can start to prioritize. You can't take on all 10 things, right? You can't take on all 10. So what you want to get focused on are things that are higher importance, lower satisfaction, and higher correlation. So, Ian, I think I guess we have time for a question or two, or
We do, but I just want to say, look, I don't want to embarrass you, but that system that you invented, Customer RX, answers these questions distributor by distributor. So, I mean, really, if you want to get answers at a low cost, then look at the system Jonathan invented. So, okay, we've got a couple upcoming events. Please hang on for this. So on December 13th, Kevin Wadick, who used to be the president of Zorro and is now the CEO of Fleet Pride, which is really interesting, very different business, right? So this is Fleet Pride is hundreds of branches and they do a bunch of repairs. And so it's very different than the marketplace that he ran at Zorro, though he has a Grainger background, which is more like Fleet Pride. So Kevin is coming back on the show in his new role to the Wholesale Change Show, talking about charting a journey of success at Fleet Pride. This will be a fascinating conversation. You're not going to want to miss it. It's brought to you by White Cup, Enable, and Epicor. So thank you to those fine companies for making that content possible. Then we have something very, very different on January 17th. We're really excited because ABB and Signify, so Signify also includes Philips Lighting. These are two of the largest electrical manufacturers in the world. They reached out to us and said, hey, we want distributors to do better with us because they're seeing all this competition from alternate channels. So we want to work with you to develop a webinar, or at least a white paper, I guess, on how distributors can become more important to manufacturers from the manufacturer's point of view. So these are big, sophisticated companies, and they're going to share their inside view on how distributors can become more important to manufacturers. And we're going to have executives from each of these two companies on January 17th on the Wholesale Change Show. So you really want to subscribe to the Wholesale Change Show. You can watch it on our website. You can watch it on YouTube, or you can subscribe to it on any of the major podcast platforms. So please subscribe, please like Wholesale Change, and join us for the live session when you can bring your own questions. Jonathan, that's all I had. Fantastic job. We're getting kudos from the audience. Thank you so much for putting this together. Anyone in the audience, if you have questions, please reach out as usual. Thanks for joining us today. And Jonathan, we'll see you soon on another program from Distribution Strategy Group.
Thanks, everybody.